Hello, friends. Do you ever make a video and then you're halfway done loading it up and you discover that there's no audio? I hate when that happens. I was looking in my email this morning and I got the new issue of Liberty Dollar News. And I just like to say that, I think everybody should support Bernard von House. He is the only human being on the planet who has created a honest monetary system, and right now he's facing 22 years in prison for doing the constitutional thing. Liberty Dollar News, November 2012, Volume 14, Number 10. Prison may be next stop. Dear Liberty Dollar supporters, table of content. 1. Legal update. 2. Prison may be the next stop. 3. Additional articles regarding the times. 4. Bernard von House accomplishment. 5. Beer on tap. 6. The potential for private money. 7. The case for monetary freedom. 8. Bitcoin prevents monetary tyranny. 9. Welcome to wild Colorado. 10. And Oklahoma is packing. Number 1, legal update. If I was not facing 22 years in federal prison, I might be inclined to say this is getting boring. Thankfully, anxiety bars that from happening. Plus, I have pointed out before the arrest and conviction, I had no idea as to what it would take to return our great country to a value-based currency. Guess what? I still don't know what it will take. Hopefully, it will not take 22 years in prison. But I decided to make a stand, and I am appreciative that many of you decided to join me. So, here we stand, waiting for Judge Vorney's to take action and hope for the best. As of October 18th, it has been 19 months since my conviction. Wow. In a few more months, I could be back in court on the second anniversary of my conviction. Whenever, I hope some of you might join me. 2. I wrote the judge and I told him that I'm just as guilty as Bernard and I should be indicted as well. 2. Prison may be the next stop. Well, now all is lost. All the mainstream media has discovered the Liberty Dollar. I didn't think this would happen. Not only was the interview very enjoyable here in Malibu, the article in the New York Times, of all places, was terrific. And while the Liberty Dollar had been covered in hundreds of newspapers since my conviction, the Times lived up to the standards that makes it one of the top papers in the country, or maybe more accurately, Alan Feuchter did some fine writing and the editors let it be. Seriously, the full-page article, Prison May Be the Next Stop on a Gold Currency Journey, was very well written as Alan sorted out tons of material that we covered during our extensive 4-hour interview. The article opens with high above the cliff tops and the beach bars up a winding mountain road in a borrowed house on someone else's ranch. An unusual criminal is waiting for his fate. And closes with, the thing that fires me up the most, he will say, is what happens when money goes bad, people go crazy. Do you know why? Because they can't exist without value. Value is intrinsic in man. Please click here and judge for yourself. I would love to hear your comments via bernard@libertydollarnews.org. Thanks, Alan, for your interest and the fine reporting. The New York Sun wrote a very eloquent and well-reasoned editorial, Rosa Parks of the Dollar, in response to the Times article. It addressed an important point, the Liberty Dollar case that the Times article failed to address. Please click here for the Rosa Parks editorial. 3. Additional articles regarding the Times. The Times article was picked up by an amazing number of newspapers, sites, and blogs. Here are just a few. Please search New York Times plus Not House for more articles. The dilemma of false terrorism. Sound money advocate faces terminal jail sentence. Gold Liberty Dollar creator awaits his sentence. Bernard von Nathaus awaiting sentencing for competing with the Federal Reserve with a hard money Liberty Dollar. Liberty Dollar creator awaits his fate. Liberty Dollar creator awaiting prison. When money goes bad, people go crazy. Number 4, Bernard von Nathaus accomplishment by Nathan Lewis for Forbes.com. A U.S. businessman, Bernard von Nathaus, established Liberty Services, which in 1998 began issuing an alternative currency based on gold. Although Liberty Services created gold and silver coins, a far more interesting development was the issuance of small denomination paper banknotes. These represented warehouse receipts for gold and silver bullion held in a vault in Idaho. Technically, the paper certificates did not represent, they were warehouse receipts, and a warehouse receipts were not banknote, as Liberty Service was not a bank. By introducing small denomination notes, von Nathaus created a system with enough utility to conceivably compete with and displace the existing floating fiat dollar. In some situations, this apparently scared someone in Washington because von Nathaus was harshly persecuted by the federal government. In 2009, he was arrested and charged with numerous crimes related to counterfeiting, although the Liberty Dollar notes and coins bore no resemblance to Federal Reserve notes. In 2011, he was convicted on several counts, faced up to 22 years of jail time, and was declared a domestic terrorist by the FBI. Thus, we have to give credit where credit is due to Bernard von Nathaus for introducing the first and apparently only gold-based system of small denomination paper banknotes since the end of the world gold standard in 1971. He doesn't seem to be well appreciated here in the U.S., but perhaps those large Chinese banks will learn something from his accomplishment and implement it in China. Editor note by Bernard. While several hundred articles have been written regarding the Liberty Dollar over the past 14 years, this is the first article that actually acknowledges me to be the first and only person to issue gold-based warehouse receipts and even use my name in the title. I consider this a unique honor, as I respect Lewis as being the point person working toward a new gold standard for the huge volume and quality of his ongoing work, and his book Gold, the Once and Future Money. His work is outstanding and a must-read. Click here for his archived work or visit newworldeconomics.com for additional information. Thanks, Nate. The complete article is available here. Number 5, Beer on Tap by Seth Lipsky, the notable editor of the New York Sun. This is the most important monetary case this year. This case with the biggest potential impact before the federal courts this year is not the saga of Obamacare. There's no gainsaying that Obamacare was an important case. And it's hard to sugarcoat the majority opinion obfuscating the power of Congress to impose a mandate for health insurance via the taxing power. But what does one figure that will impact 5% of Americans? 20? 25? How about a case that has, if only on the ricochet, the potential to impact everyone who uses American money? Welcome to Beer versus the United States, a lawsuit brought by a rainbow coalition of some of the most distinguished judges on the federal bench. They are suing in their own court system for a raise in their pay. They contend that when Congress suspended an automatic pay increase previously legislated to protect the judges against inflation, it violated the Constitution. Specifically, the diminishment clause, which says that the compensation for federal judges, quote, shall not be diminished during their continuance in office, unquote. Please click here for the complete article. Additional info regarding Beer versus the United States is here. Here's another major article, Beer versus United States by Seth Lifsky. Is legal tender next? The United States Court of Appeals for the Federal Circuit, sitting in blanc, handed down the ruling on Friday. The ruling hasn't received much coverage in the press, though, at least in our view, it's one of the most important cases of our time. The reason is that it has to do not only with the question of need for Congress to keep its promises and the need to attract a first-class judiciary, but also the question of constitutional money. The judges turn out to be a special case because it's unconstitutional ever to diminish their pay. This is an American bedrock that was laid down by the founders because of the British tyrant George III. The king made judges dependent, quote, on his will alone for the tenure of their offices and the amount and payment of their salaries, unquote. As America's revolutionaries put it in the Declaration of Independence, so is written into the United States Constitution, that the compensation of judges, quote, shall not be diminished during their continuance in office, unquote. The court deciding Beer didn't get into the legal tender per se, but the legal tender question is the elephant in the courtroom, so to speak. If a dollar can't be diminished for judges, that is, if the legal tender laws are not good enough for judges, why should they be good enough for the rest of us? If they are not good enough for the contract between the government and the judges, why should they be good enough for contracts between private parties? I encourage you to read this terrific editorial here. Both articles are historic. Number 6, the potential for private money. On May 23, 2012, Cato Institute issued Policy Analysis number 698 by Thomas L. Hogan, an assistant professor of economics at West Texas A&M University, titled Competition in Currency, the Potential for Private Money, written by John Montanus for Forbes. Privately issued money can benefit consumers in many ways, particularly in the areas of value stability and product variety. Decentralized currency production can benefit consumers by reducing inflation and increasing economic stability. Unlike a central bank, competing private banks must attract customers by providing innovative products, restricting the quantity of notes issued, and limiting the riskiness of their investing activities. Although the Federal Reserve currently has a de facto monopoly on the provision of currency in the United States, this was not always the case. Throughout most of U.S. history, private banks issued their own banknotes as currency. This practice continues today in a few countries and could be reinstituted in the United States with minimal changes to the banking system. The paper examines two ways in which banks could potentially issue private money. First, U.S. banks could issue private notes redeemable for U.S. Federal Reserve notes. Considering that banks issuing private notes in Hong Kong, Scotland, and Northern Ireland earn hundreds of millions of dollars annually, it appears U.S. banks may be missing an opportunity to earn billions of dollars in annual profits. Second, recent turmoil in the financial sector has increased demand for a stable alternative currency. Banks may be able to capture significant portions of the domestic and international currency markets with a private, commonly commodity-based currency. Legislation clarifying the rights of private banks to issue currency could help clear the path toward a return to private money. Hogan writes that the lack of participants in the private banknote market appears to be due to the uncertain legal status of private note issue and the rigorous prosecution of currency-related crimes. The complete article is by Forbes is here. Please click here for the complete paper. Number 7, the case for monetary freedom. Recently, Forbes published Ron Paul's The Case for Monetary Freedom. In that work, Paul states, I took the position that I wouldn't close the Federal Reserve down in one day. The Fed will close itself down eventually when it destroys the value of the dollar. But I don't want that to happen, either closing it down in one day or waiting for a collapse of the whole system. My idea is similar to what F.A. Hayek, 1976 to 1978, had talked about. Why don't we denationalize money, legalize competition, allow free markets to work, and allow free market banking to work? I think we should legalize competition in currencies, which means that first we recognize the Constitution and repeal the legal tender laws. As I have pointed out to Paul and this readership, there is no need to repeal the legal tender laws before we take action. And to make this a requirement is a non-starter and damns any initial development. Please remember, I was not convicted of violating the legal tender laws because they don't apply to a private voluntary barter currency. In fact, I didn't violate any other federal laws. I remain convinced of my innocence. Please click here for Paul's complete keynote address at Cato Institute's 29th Annual Monetary Conference, November 16th, 2011 in Washington, D.C. Why Monetary Freedom Matters. Click here for the Forbes article. Number 8, Bitcoin prevents monetary tyranny. Bitcoin is not about making rapid global transactions with little or no fee. Bitcoin is about preventing monetary tyranny. That is the reason d'etre. Monetary tyranny can take many ugly forms. It can be deliberate inflation, persecutory capital controls, prearranged defaults within the banking cartel, or even worse, blatant sovereign confiscation. Sadly, these threats are a potential in almost any jurisdiction in the world today. The United States does not have a monopoly on monetary repression and monetary tyranny. The article covers extensive details about Doug Jackson and his e-gold project. It also details Bernard von Nothaus's efforts with the Liberty Dollar and observes that many commentators have pointed out that the absurdity of penalizing honest money to strengthen the facade of manipulated money, further contributing to the disturbing trend among against monetary freedom and financial privacy are initiatives like the Foreign Account Tax Compliance Act, and that many countries are ready to embrace the promise of decentralized non-political currency until it can come to terms with the fact that money in a free society should be used for the purpose of identity and asset tracking. This is another fine article by John Matonis for Forbes. 9. Welcome to wild Colorado. There's no doubt that Colorado is not for a big, intrusive federal government. 2 major actions are in the works. Colorado bill will legalize gold, silver currency. Colorado state senators will consider a bill that would allow people to use gold and silver as currency. A similar measure is already in place in Utah and is being considered in 12 other states, reports CBS station KCNC. Supporters are concerned about the strength of the U.S. dollar. The sponsors of the bill say they are concerned about the strength of the U.S. dollar, public debt, and currency devaluation. Quote, over the history, just about every country in the world that has had a serious debt crisis has intentionally inflated their currency, unquote. Senator Kent Lambert, Republican, told KCNC's Michael Griego. More information here. Colorado legalizes cannabis. 55% of the voters in Colorado decided in favor of Amendment 64, which allows for the legal possession of up to 1 ounce of cannabis and or the cultivation of up to 6 cannabis plants in private by those persons aged 21 and over. Normal says, quote, the passage of these measures strikes a significant blow to the federal cannabis prohibition. Like alcohol prohibition before it, marijuana prohibition is a failed federal policy that delegates the burden of enforcement to the states and local police. Alcohol prohibition fell when a sufficient number of states enacted legislation repealing the state's alcohol prohibition laws. With state police and prosecutors no longer engaging in the federal government's bidding to enforce an unpopular law, the federal government had little choice but to abandon the policy altogether. History is now repeating itself. More information here. Number 10, and Oklahoma is packing. Oklahoma's new law that makes guns a common sight has taken effect. Now anyone licensed to carry a concealed firearm can choose to carry a weapon out in the open, in a belt or shoulder holster, loaded or unloaded. 5 minutes after midnight on Thursday, Mr. Hall and his friends, supporters of a gun rights group, marked the occasion by wearing their unconcealed handguns while dining at Beverly's, a 24-hour restaurant. It's just peaceful assembly, said Mr. Hall, 44, and the association's co-director. We're all licensed by the state to carry. We've all been trained and vetted. Why wouldn't somebody want to have that kind of group do business with them in their establishment? Please click here for the article. More on the Oklahoma Open Carry Association can be found here. Closing remarks. Did you happen to notice how many times Forbes is mentioned in this newsletter? 6 times. It would seem that Mr. Forbes, who is a longtime fan of the gold standard, is taking a more active role in bringing the gold standard to the attention of the marketplace. Of course, that could be a huge assistance toward returning the country to a value-based monetary system. Many thanks to your continued support, for it is only by banding together and adopting a free and independent currency that provides us with, quote, just weights and measures, unquote, will we be able to throw off the yoke of a manipulated monetary tax system and generate a peaceful and prosperous society? Thank you again for all your efforts to return America to value, $1 at a time. Bernard von Nothaus, monetary architect and editor. All right, Bernard. We really got to help Bernard. I mean, as soon as this case is won, I mean, this is the answer to our monetary problems. Being able to have silver specie and Federal Reserve notes circulating side by side is one of the best things that we can do to this country, especially when you can take, for instance, I'm not sure if, I believe they're on the $50 bias right now, or, you know, the 1 ounce of silver is worth $50 right now because of its monetary value, or I'm not sure if it's gonna, anyway. So it's $50, you know, and you can buy an ounce of silver right now for 35 or so, you know. So each time you buy one of those, each time you buy a $50 bill, you are making, you know, $15. And if you're a merchant, whether you're a merchant or a consumer, and you're using these in commerce, when you go out and spend that, you're making $15. For the, you know, for the merchant, it's a good deal because they can buy these things just, you know, like currency from the bank. They can buy these things from their regional currency office, and they can offer these things to their customers as change. And it's up to the customer. You know, does the customer want a Federal Reserve note, or do they want some silver? Most people enjoy the silver. And then, you know, if they have to spend it, they can take it back to where they got it, and they can, you know, buy food with it. They don't have to go down to some gold dealer and get scalped, or, you know, go through some kind of complicated process which may be taxable, and just to get the value back for their money, you know. And then if they take that $50 bill and they set it in their sock drawer for 10 years and pull it out, well, that $50 bill is going to be worth probably a lot more, especially how inflation's going right now. So that's why we need to use gold and silver, or any kind of commodity-based currency. This monopolistic creating currency out of nothing is going to be the demise of the world. And until the world, I mean, it's not just the United States, until the world can divorce themselves from the dollar, until the United States government gets their finances in order, I'm just not sure what we can do. Well, anyway, thank you very much for watching, and you know, get in contact with Bernard, and you know, I've sent money to him, and you should too, to help him out with his lawyer fees. I think he still owes a lot of money on that, and not to mention that he's done an appeal, and, you know, he still needs help. So send him some money if you got some. Anyway, thanks. Have a great day.